April 19, 1993. April 19, 1995. A wild coincidence or terrible retribution by a militant subculture?
There have been indications there would be retaliation. There is a support infrastructure in the United States.
From armed extremists to self-appointed patriots, News 8's Robert Riggs shows you who these people are, where they operate, and if you should fear them. Explosion of Anger, tonight at 10 on the News 8 Update.
The siege of the Branch Davidian cult compound became the moral equivalent of the Alamo for anti-government groups. Tonight, Channel 8's Robert Riggs begins a special assignment report, Explosion of Anger, tracing the call to arms to a self-proclaimed Branch Davidian ambassador to the militia movement.
The terror in Oklahoma City appears firmly rooted in rubble 300 miles away. A message out of the ashes of the Branch Davidian cult compound near Waco may have incited the nation's worst terrorist act.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
The seeds of violence stretch into the foothills of the Rockies, to the apocalyptic message carried on by a disciple of David Koresh.
Today in America, people are being murdered by the government, and that has got to be our focus. And it seems to me that people at large have taken my advice, and hence the movement has come together like a fist.
It appears somebody acted on your message. Do you feel at all responsible?
I'll be the first to say that I accept whatever measure of responsibility I have in relation to this bombing. I'm not going to shirk that responsibility. David said the same thing during the siege. He said sometimes it takes tragedy to wake up the American people.
25-year-old Ron Cole walks in the gun-toting worlds of the Branch Davidians and the militia movement.
We all condemn this tragedy. The Branch Davidians condemn it, militia members condemn it, patriots condemn it, the rest of the world condemns it. However, if the government exploits this tragedy and uses it as an excuse to crack down on militia organizations and patriot-minded people, then we will fight to the death.
Cole blazes a path to militias across the nation. The government's handling of the raid and siege triggered anger.
It was like Pearl Harbor to the movement.
Cole says he shared the spotlight before a Florida militia unit with Michigan militia member Mark Kornke. Kornke lectured on how to get mentally prepared for war with the government. Oklahoma bombing suspect Timothy McVeigh guarded Kornke at the meeting with an AK-47 assault rifle, according to Cole.
There are people that would say that you're an accessory to murder.
Yeah.
Are you ready to take that responsibility? Children dead, elderly people standing in line in a Social Security office dead. For what?
If putting out the truth is going to make me an accessory to murder in this instance, then I'm guilty as charged.
Ron Cole and others made a cottage industry out of Waco conspiracy theories. Cole peddles his version of the truth in this booklet, Sinister Twilight, and stars in a video titled Day 51. It's a mixture of fact and far-fetched murder plots.
Branch Davidian church members compare it to an attack on a Viet Cong village.
These people were gunned down in cold blood as they tried to escape.
The video claims the ATF raid targeted 2 Davidian computer hackers. They had uncovered secret shipments of arms captured in Desert Storm, smuggled to street gangs.
These gangs, working with the ATF, will be used to enter civilian homes to confiscate weapons.
Even before the fiery end of the siege, the cult compound attracted ragtag militia units to Waco.
These are people that are not going to tolerate lawless government any longer.
The inferno that consumed Koresh and 79 followers became a crucible of anti-government views.
A sense of betrayal. This government has left us in the dust.
The government's handling of the Waco standoff galvanized dozens of diverse groups, covering the spectrum of gun rights, income tax protesters, private land rights, the Federal Reserve, United Nations, and New World Order. This group, called Eyes of Texas, meets on Tuesday nights at a Dallas hotel, united by a common enemy.
How do we know, given what our government did in Waco, that the government didn't plant these bombs and then find someone to blame the militia?
An estimated 32 militia units, up to 20,000 strong, form ranks in Texas following Waco.
Waco became a rallying cry
The connection between Waco and Oklahoma City is clear to former FBI agent Buck Revell. Revell says radical elements demonize federal agents and launched a campaign of threats.
It reached the point where I was concerned that there would be some sort of violent act take place that would be in retribution, in the mind of those so inclined, would be a retribution for Waco. I had no idea that it would take on the immensity of the tragedy in Oklahoma City.
Hello, America, and welcome to the show today. Who is Ron Cole?
Well, I've been a gun rights activist for a long time.
Ron Cole continues to tap a wellspring of alienation. Cole warns of civil war if the government cracks down on the militia movement.
We're feeling trapped, cornered, and if we say things that sometimes seem hard to believe or maybe a little irrational to the average person, it's only because we are so scared and so desperate we don't know what to do.
News 8 has learned that the FBI plans to question Cole. They want to know where he spread his message and who paid a lot of attention to it. Tracy.
Robert, I recall that last November there was a shootout at the old compound area, and Cole was arrested and charged there with some weapons violations. What happened?
Cole did not contest the charges of unlawfully carrying a weapon, which was a misdemeanor. Now, his friend Wally Kennett, a fellow Branch Davidian, Kennett jumped bail in March, and Cole says that Kennett told him recently that he would be dead in 2 years and would take a lot of people with him. And now there's been no connection between Kennett and this bombing in Oklahoma City. I'll have more tomorrow night. Okay. Second part.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Some Texas militia leaders believe the federal government committed mass murder in Oklahoma City. Far-fetched conspiracy theories thrive in the radical ranks of the militia movement. The latest plot suggests U.S. agents blew up their own federal building and the people inside to make the militia foils for more gun control.
I think the message is the CIA probably had some extra explosive they needed to get rid of.
The Texas Constitutional Militia honored dead Davidians outside Waco last week during the aftershock of the Oklahoma bombing.
They were unjustly treated. The federal government turned on them. A corrupt government, a perverted government massacred these people here.
The federal government's handling of the raid and 51-day standoff became a rallying cry for a wide spectrum of anti-government groups. The Committee for Waco Justice, based in the nation's capital, claims the ATF and FBI murdered the Davidians. The libertarian-backed group calls for a congressional investigation.
Waco was a wake-up call to the fact that the government is much more out of control than any of us realized.
The government set out to conduct a military assault on a church.
Dozens of videos circulate wild-eyed Waco conspiracy theories through the militia movement.
Every level of government participated in this military terroristic attack on it.
The message of fear helped recruit members for more than 30 private militia units in Texas. Members of the Texas Constitutional Militia describe themselves as good government with guns. The militia movement's strength in Texas ranges from 3,500 to 20,000 by their estimates.
The citizens of this nation is going to be brought under a block-by-block, city-by-city assault to disarm the people and to put us into a form of slavery. We have no choice but to train for that contingency.
Waco became the moral equivalent of the Alamo for the militias. Their members typically hold an apocalyptic vision, see themselves as guardians of the American way of life, heavily armed defenders against secret conspiracies to subvert the government. The Anti-Defamation League worries that right-wing extremists advocate anarchy.
So the fact that they're paramilitary training, they're using weapons, the fact that they have knowledge on how to put together explosives, is a very real possibility and a potential that there can be a violent act.
Militias claim the U.S. Constitution expressly calls for their existence. Indeed, Article 1, Section 8 states that Congress shall have the power to provide for calling forth the militia and to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. Article 2, Section 2 adds that the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the militia of the several states.
innocent children in that building only.
Texas private militia leaders don't accept the president as their commander-in-chief.
Militias are under the governor of the state. They have nothing to do with the federal government.
But Governor George W. Bush keeps the private militias at arm's length.
I'm only interested in being the commander-in-chief of the Texas Guard. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Drawing ties between bombing suspect Timothy McVeigh and the Michigan militia anger supporters of the movement. Soldier of Fortune magazine says it learned that McVeigh distributed radical literature at one meeting.
And essentially they told him to buzz off. And he went away, and he was never a member of the organization. And to say that that indicates the militias are involved in this thing is guilt by association of the most extended kind.
Okay, come on, just stop.
Texas militia members learn hand-to-hand combat from veterans of Desert Storm. Many are weekend warriors from all walks of life. But private militias, unlike the U.S. military, are responsible to no one.
The fear element is what generates them. It's what energizes them. It's what sets them primed to go into action. And the tragedy will be if they are caught in a situation to where they have no way out.
A bloody confrontation between federal investigators and the militia movement could erupt during the search for ties to Timothy McVeigh, and the president's push for expanded domestic counterterrorism powers might stoke the fires of fear among the militias. Tracy?
Last night, Robert, you had told us that Ron Cole, the self-proclaimed Branch Davidian, had attended this meeting in Florida where some of these alleged bombers were and the FBI wanted to talk to him about that. Is there any word on this tonight?
Ron Cole tells me that the FBI questioned him in Colorado for 2 hours today, seeking the identity of John Doe suspect number 2, and Cole says he couldn't help on that score. And tonight we also heard from Clive Doyle, the spiritual leader of the Davidians. Doyle says the survivors disassociate themselves from Cole. They are upset over the bombing and not connected with any militia. Tracy, John.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.